One of the key things about AMBIT is that AMBIT is a team intervention. This may seem somewhat paradoxical when we also emphasise that the key thing is to help a individual key worker to develop a relationship with a young person, so that there is one person within the team who has the sort of primary key working task with a particular young person. However, at the same time, the relationship that key worker has with the rest of the team is absolutely crucial in the work that we do with very troubled and the sort of young people who easily make us anxious and concerned. So what we're going to focus on now is just how is it that a key worker can experience help and support from other team members, and that we've got one or two particular ideas about this to try and make that process more effective. Now, it may seem that we're making a bit of a palaver about a process that may seem often quite natural and just happens quite easily, in which one of the ways that key workers get help from other team members is by telling their team, other members of the team, about their difficulties, about what's working, what's not working, in what is often called multidisciplinary team discussion, or team meetings, or meeting with supervisors, or whatever it is. Teams have all sorts of arrangements for sharing information about the work that an individual key worker is doing with other members of the team. What I think is a little different with AMBIT is that we have got some sort of reservations about how well some of those conversations actually work for a key worker. That although it's obviously good to be able to communicate with other team members, sometimes those communications don't help the key worker to know, either to know a bit more what they should be doing, or to feel a bit more confident or a bit more contained about the problem they've presented. Our experience in sort of multidisciplinary team meetings and other settings is that other things may happen in these kind of conversations, in which it may result not only with the key worker starting off feeling a bit anxious or kind of concerned or not sure what they're supposed to be doing next, but then a lot of people can start to feel the same, and it actually just it not so much contains the key worker as simply amplifies the difficulties they have. A kind of feature that we would want to highlight about this is what we call storytelling. Essentially, where a key worker just starts to describe, often in quite a lot of detail, a particular dramatic or worrying or frightening or threatening kind of event to a colleague, who then could equally feel worried and just as similar, be in a similar sort of state of mind as the key worker themselves. Now obviously these things, we're not saying these things don't have a place at all, but we think that sometimes it might be useful to use a slightly more disciplined approach as to how can we enable other members of the team to actively support a key worker. And the framework we use for this is a mentalisation based approach. I.e., what we're trying to do is move people away from describing their feelings to thinking about their feelings, to introduce reflection into interactions between colleagues about concerning situations. We call it, it's all described in the manual, we call it this kind of four-step, it's sort of like a kind of four-step dance, and we understand that people kind of find this a bit kind of artificial at the beginning and a bit kind of weird to be almost sort of told how you're going to say hello to your colleague or how to have a conversation. But we do think these ideas have some important value. I'm just going to go through the four steps. The first one, before, often a key worker can say, I'd really like to talk over, I'm really worried about something, and the person they're talking to then has the task of what we call marking the task. What's the purpose of this conversation? Why are we going to talk about this? What do you want to get at the end of this conversation? How much time have we got? We've got 10 minutes to discuss this case, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Okay, what do you want from this conversation? This is often quite tricky. It's like sort of stopping a train in its tracks, because the person's maybe quite agitated, quite kind of anxious, wants to tell you. I just want to tell you. But actually, the important thing is, okay, we're going to hear it, but before we hear it, let's work out what we're going to do with what you're telling me about. What do you want us to think about with you? So it's introducing reflection right at the beginning of the process, rather than hoping it just might turn up later.
And it's often a little bit of, okay, tell me, well, I just want to get your thoughts on it. Okay, well, what do you want to get? What particular thing do you want me to give you my thoughts about? Not just, I just want to offload. I want to try and move away from that. Just saying, okay, just see if we can name what you would want from this. So it might be, for example, look, I'm not quite sure if I'm judging the risks right on this case. Okay, let's look at it, see what the risks are, and look at it together. Or another one might be, I left the last contact with the young person. He was just really kind of angry with me, and I didn't cut. And I'm thinking, how am I going to re-establish contact with this young person? Okay, right. Let's have a think about that, and give me a bit of background about that. So that takes us to stage 2, which we call just tell us the bare bones of it. You don't have to convey the kind of I said this, he said that, she said that, mum came in, said that. This is, again, people find it often more or less easy not to get into this kind of detailed storytelling. So we encourage people to say, okay, just tell us what are the key issues here. So the key issue might be this young person's got a very poor relationship with his father. His father has got a history of being quite kind of aggressive and threatening. That's the difficulty, and I'm trying to engage father in a different kind of relationship with his son, and actually he behaves in quite a threatening way to me, and I'm not sure I'm being very helpful in trying to help in moving this forward. Okay, tell me a bit what you did last. So we just encourage the key worker to give us the bare bones of it, not the blow by blow accounts. Crucially, having got the bare bones out, you go to stage 3, which is how are you feeling now? This is the mentalisation. This is the way we introduce, obviously, a mentalising perspective on this. I.e., if you're feeling threatened, anxious, worried, you're kind of you're not able then to think so easily about what some of the options might be. So the aim of the third stage is to, okay, stop the information for a minute. How are we all feeling? And to try and get the key worker to identify and name their current kind of feeling states towards this, around this case. It's nothing, we don't have to do anything with it, we don't have to get rid of it, but we have to try and acknowledge those feelings, because those feelings will be impacting on the key worker's capacity to think. Having got that out, often, sometimes it works, it feels quite natural, sometimes less so. Then we move on to the 4th stage, which is, okay, let's go back. We have to return to action. Okay, well, we are where we are. Let's now think, what are the options as to what to do? So that, and ideally, one comes down to something quite specific as to, okay, well, what I think I've got to do today is da 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 da. Or, you know, okay, I can see that this week, the next step that I've got to do is to have a phone call with a parent about this, or talk to the head of year in college or school about a young person. So we get down to some quite specific actions, not just too general, because again, the idea is that what might be helpful for the key worker is getting specific. Now, that's an example of going through the 4-step dance, and is seen as a very key part of AMBIT in relation to finding ways that team members can very directly and in quite a kind of concrete way support each other in their work with young people.